Well, this LGA 1366 project here is basically finished at this point, with only one or two unresolved issues that crept up during the testing and overclocking of this system. First off, I had to repair the water block which had leaked onto the video card and fried the i5-2550K processor that I was running in this system before. And after epoxying the cracks and sealing the threads with automotive gasket maker, I had to figure out a way to mount the water block to the LGA 1366. As the original bracket for this water block was for up to a socket 75 and a socket AM3, I had to modify it just slightly to fit the LGA 1155 socket, but the LGA 1366 is a larger hole pattern than the 1155 was. I found that the LGA 2011 used the same hole pattern as the LGA 1366 used, and since I was unable to find many choices for the LGA 1366 platform, I ended up settling on a bracket for the LGA 2011. I had to modify the bracket slightly as it was for a different style of water block. It was pretty close to the same water block, but the water outlets were just a little bit off from this one. I had looked for a new water block, but I didn't like the choices that were available under $100, and most water blocks I saw were more restricted to flow than this one is, and others had a solid top on them, and I couldn't see the flow through the water block, which is something that I like to monitor there and to watch for any buildup and things like that. Thankfully though, Thermaltake provided pretty good coolant with this case, and I really haven't had any problems with it with corrosion or clogging the system up for the 7 or so years that I've been running in this system. I also added Arctic Silver 5 and a fan to the Northbridge heatsink, but I may end up needing to put a better heatsink on this Northbridge at some point, because it does run still a little bit hot. A little bit hotter than I would prefer anyway.
May the force be with you.
Well, we're booted up and we're lit up and everything else is going good here. Catalyst is complaining about the new video card. Put a little rag under there just in case. Even though I'm confident that I fixed it. The epoxy and a little bit of Right Stuff gasket maker on the threads. I don't think it's going to be leaking anymore, but just in case. You know a video card is going to kick ass when it's got a pair of copper headers coming out of the side of it there. Yeah. Zip tied up the power wires there, primarily to hold up that end of the video card a little bit better. I hate it when those things sag. I really wish they would make something to hold those video cards better on that side of it, but most of them they don't anymore. So that'll hold it up there from sagging too much. So yeah, get the driver installed here. We'll start having some fun with this system. One problem that I had during my initial testing of this board some months back was that the BIOS was reporting the motherboard that was operating in triple channel mode, yet it was failing to count the memory on the third channel. At the time I thought it was due to mismatched memory. After putting this all together with matched memory, it still fails to count the memory on the third channel. What's interesting is that the BIOS does recognize that there is memory installed in this channel. It shows the timing of the memory and everything, but it does not count the memory at post. And the same is true within Windows. Even AIDA64 says the same thing. It shows the memory is installed, shows the timings for it, but yet it only shows 8 gigabytes in total. When I got this board, I had to do some work to the socket, and there are 2 or 3 pins that are still broken on it, which is probably what is leading to the issue with the memory not being fully recognized. But what's curious though is that this issue does appear when I searched on it on Google, and the answer that I saw on the message boards were basically reseat the processor or you have a defective motherboard. I can tell from the memory test that even though AIDA64 reports triple channel memory, it's clearly actually operating in dual channel mode. This should be okay though. I think if I replace it with PC 2400 memory, this will probably help to make up for the loss of one memory channel. Overclocking on the LGA 1366 platform is a little bit of a different beast than the LGA 775 was. but it's pretty much the same as any other Intel platform since the LGA 1366. MSI provides some advice in the BIOS for a lot of things and settings and stuff like that, which is nice. I just wish that all the settings had advice or description of what they do. Taking a look at the voltages, they provide advice and a description for most of the voltages. The not recommended levels are based on Intel spec for maximum voltages, but they can be increased much higher than that. There is a very clear warning attached to the memory voltage that anything above 1.65 volts to the memory will damage the CPU, at least according to Intel's spec, as they say. What's curious though is that the voltage can go much higher on this motherboard than 1.65 volts, and I would think MSI would be limiting that voltage to 1.65 volts if it is actually indeed damaging to the processor. But I will keep it just about under the 1.65 rating. No need to go any higher than 1.6 in my case. Maybe 1 or 2 points, but that's about it. This Xeon X5672 CPU operates at a QPI frequency of 2.4 GHz for a total of 19.2 gigabytes a second, or 4.8 gigatransfers a second for the interlink speed, which is the total amount of bandwidth between the CPU and Northbridge on these chips. I tried to bump this to 5.86 and 6.4 just for fun. 6.4 yielded no post, and 5.86 would post, but wouldn't go any further than that. But since I'm running a single video card, I don't think there's going to be a whole lot of improvement by just increasing the QPI speed. I think the 19.2 gigabyte a second interlink speed should be enough for a single GPU, but it might be a slight bottleneck at the speeds I'm running at, but we'll have to see. More testing will need to be done at lower clock speeds to see if there is indeed a bottleneck. But the QPI frequency is said to yield a higher base clock speed if that's bumped up a bit. I have managed to get about 4.5 gigahertz out of this CPU. The system has posted at 5 gigahertz, but at that speed it's really hit or miss whether it'll post or not, and never mind booting it. 4.5 gigahertz is just about on the edge of stability, however, and 200 megahertz base clock is about the end of the world for booting into Windows at all. 196 base clock with 1.2 volts to the QPI allows it to boot into Windows and run some benchmarks, but lowering the QPI voltage to a little bit more of a safe level causes Windows to crash during boot with a sad face about a Wii corruption error. Since filming this video, I have lowered the clock down to about 4.3 gigahertz and lowered the QPI voltage down to about 1.38, and so far that seems to be pretty happy at that speed. The other thing said to help increase the base clock speed of the processor is the uncore frequency. The uncore frequency, which, by the way, uncore is Intel's word for the functions of a processor not included in the core of the CPU, such as QPI controller, L3 cache, on-die memory controller, Thunderbolt controller, things like that, and has to be running at a minimum of 2 times the frequency of the RAM speed. Increasing the uncore frequency is said to be the necessary step in order to increase the base clock of the processor to about 200 megahertz or higher. You can see that this option is grayed out in the BIOS, and Googling this resulted in an answer supposedly being that these Xeon chips are unsupported by MSI, at least this particular model of MSI, which happened to come up quite frequently in the posts that I saw on Google as well. And thus this option remains locked to auto and grayed out. I have no idea if this is really why the option is grayed out, or if it's a simple matter of Intel locking this with the Xeon chips. Intel does do stuff like this on their CPUs, but the fact is I think 5 gigahertz is probably achievable with this CPU if I could just get it stably above 200 megahertz base clock. And I would be rather curious if anyone is happened to be running one of these Xeon chips on their 1366 motherboards, if this option is grayed out or not. It might just be something with this MSI board, but it'd be kind of interesting to know if it's grayed out on other motherboards too or not. This processor likes to jump around with its clock speed. This CPU, like all others with a turbo clocking ability, increases its multiplier beyond what is claimed to be the max. I had to force this processor to stay at the multiplier that I set in the BIOS, and I had to turn on the overspeed protection to prevent the CPU from jumping 1 to 3 multipliers higher than I had set in the BIOS, which was resulting in a crash occasionally when it would increase a multiplier under load, and it was getting to be a pain in the butt too when that happened. I have upgraded the video card to an XFX Radeon R285 with 2 GB of RAM. Before I was running my 5770 in this system, so I had a chance to test AMD's Eyefinity on triple monitors before I upgraded the video card. And frankly, I'm not overly impressed with how AMD's drivers or the GPU handles triple monitors. Wonder if Flynn's gonna pop out of this box. Although, in all honesty, I'd rather have Olivia Wilde pop out of this box. Well, unfortunately, no Olivia Wilde inside the box, but we do have a warranty card. Ooh. And a quick install guide, apparently, on the other side of that. Make sure that the gold contacts of the graphic card are completely seated into the expansion slot. Alrighty then. Adapters and connectors. Probably none of those are included. Limited warranty. Lifetime limited warranty. Well, not lifetime. Doesn't say lifetime. Supported by a limited warranty, probably as far as you can throw it. Driver CD installation guide. Play hard. Well, we might do that. AMD driver installation DVD. So the manual says we got a driver CD, but yeah, it comes with a DVD. Alright, I'm being stupid. Although, you know, they could have actually made that at least a little bit coherent. What do we have in this box here? Ah, we have some cables. Some power adapter cables there. Might come in handy. I hope I don't need those, but if I do, hey, I've got them. Beautiful graphics card. Not as beautiful as Olivia Wilde, but hey, I'll take what I can get, right? Get this out of the bag one-handed. Probably not. I like when these companies put these caps over these ports. I do like that. I like it a lot. Apparently I'm not going to do this. Okay, there we go. I never understood why they don't put heat sinks anymore on the RAM. I never quite understood that. But there she is. Hope it works. And it started up and only displays 2 of the 3 monitors. And it's not really a big deal, but it is a bit annoying that the video card is not sending a signal to the left monitor here, which is fed from the video card by its uppermost DVI port through an DVI to HDMI adapter, and at least until it reaches Windows, and then it kicks on. It takes a bit of time after reaching the desktop for the driver to adjust the taskbar to only show on the center monitor, which I had to set in Catalyst. Otherwise, the taskbar is stretched all the way across all 3 monitors, which is a pain in the butt in my opinion. I don't care for that at all. Some of the menus like to pop up halfway in between 2 monitors, which is also very annoying. Catalyst has also been kind enough to lose its monitor configuration on more than one occasion, and I've had to completely set up the monitors again from scratch. I prefer the way Windows handles triple monitors better than Catalyst, as Windows allows for separate backgrounds on each monitor, which I find nice. But Catalyst has to be in control of the monitors in order for games to recognize 5760 by 1080 resolution. It basically turns three 1920 by 1080 desktops into one 5760 by 1080 desktop. Using a background matching this resolution does show correctly on all three monitors, but it splits it in between at the bezels there, and I don't care for that look either. Well, now it's time for the benchmarking portion of this video. Ada64 benchmark for CPU Queen is scoring 51889, which does vary slightly by a few points each time I run this benchmark. My Xeon E5450 at 4.5 GHz was right about where the i7-9650 CPU is scoring on the list, at about 37,000 something there. The PhotoWorks score is surprisingly right under the i7-9650, probably due to the lack of the triple channel memory here. You can see the improvement that Intel has made to later i7 CPUs here with the CPU AES test. Where this CPU really shines is the VP8 floating point test here. The rest, well, falls a bit behind, unfortunately, again showing how much improvement the newer core CPUs are. Running Unigine Haven across all three monitors at 5760 by 1080 high settings, this system is scoring about 17 frames per second on most scenes, jumping to nearly 50 at times. This, of course, is nowhere near as good as Barnacle Nerdgasm's scores for his new dual Xeon 16-core monster that costs about 10 grand to build. So I think my $120 processor motherboard combination and $200 video card are not looking too bad here. Unigine is a pretty high, intense benchmark. It takes a lot of power to run it, so it takes a lot of power to get it up into the 130 to 150 frames a second score, which his system did there. At this point, I'm pretty happy with how things have turned out so far. The triple channel memory issue is something that I've not decided if it's worth trying to fix the pins for or not. Assuming, of course, those pins are actually the problem. I'd have to download the Intel datasheet for this socket and see what those pins are for. I have tried to fix pins before on the 775 motherboards, and soldering the pins back on or repairing them is a real pain in the butt. And trying not to break the other ones or bend them in the process and get solder where there shouldn't be solder is a real pain. My real reason to fix this would be to be able to run maximum of 24 gigabytes of RAM on this motherboard, but 16 suits me just fine. It's also interesting that even though this is a Xeon and it can handle ECC memory like 128 gigabytes or 192 gigabytes or something like that, I can't remember for sure now, but being in this motherboard, it will not run ECC memory, which sucks because I have some ECC 4 gig and 8 gig sticks, but they're just a no-go on this motherboard, unfortunately. This processor appears to also consume a bit more power than the i5-2550K did, the AMD FX6100, or even the LGA 775 platforms that have been in this case, with this 1200 watt power supply. And just running some of the ADA 64 benchmarks caused my battery backup to go off.
Warning, annoying loud noise. Warning, annoying loud noise.
It also squeals the whole time running Unigen, with this video card consuming about 200 watts of power. That sure doesn't help anything either. Good thing I put a good Kingwin Mach 1 1200 watt power supply in this system a few years ago. Even when I ran the Radeon 3870X2 in this system, the battery backup never went off about being overloaded. That was a real surprise for me. I didn't expect it. I expected it would complain a little bit running this 200 watt plus video card in the system, but I wasn't expecting it to go off just by running some of the ADA 64 benchmarks, that's for sure. I wanted to run a triple monitor setup for gaming for a while now, and I needed a little bit more video card power for the task. Although the 5770 actually didn't handle triple monitors too badly, being that the i5-2550K bit the dust when the water block leaked, and I was short on money at the time, this was as much as I wanted to pay to get the system back up and running, and this was still a cheaper option than buying another 2550K. At the time, I didn't know if the motherboard survived, so it was a bit of a risk to pay $200 for a used i5 processor. At the time, this was the fastest Xeon chip with 12 megabytes of level 3 cache. That was on eBay for the cheapest price that I was willing to pay for it. I wasn't going to spend a lot of money for a processor, but I didn't know if this MSI motherboard was salvageable at all. Thankfully though, it all worked out fine so far. A higher QPI CPU and a higher multiply would be nice though, and I will probably keep an eye out for one, but for now this system is doing just fine as it is, and it's plenty of power for me right now. So this video was a compilation of 2 or 3 months worth of stuff being done to this computer, and yeah, it's working pretty good so far. And it's getting late at night and I'm a little bit tired. I've been editing this thing for a week now. But there's something that I forgot to do, or to put in this video when I was doing the voiceover, and that is I ended up finding a keyboard for this during the time that I've been working on this computer, and here it is right now. Here's a recent find at the local thrift store that I frequent. This is a Razer Tarantula. I'm actually kind of surprised to have seen this at a thrift store, given the fact that it's a Razer keyboard. You can see that it's not the cleanliest keyboard in the world, but a quick trip through the dishwasher will certainly fix that. This is not a backlit keyboard, although some of the keys are backlit. For example, the L1 through L5 shortcut keys, programmable keys there, as well as the R1 through R5 keys over here. There is one key up here that's backlit, and then of course your number scroll and caps lock lights up here. The symbol down here is also backlit, and this is all blue LEDs. Unfortunately, it doesn't appear that there's any backlighting on the keys themselves. The keys themselves, while they are quite a bit nasty in appearance, I don't even want to know what that is, but like I said, a trip through a dishwasher will take care of that. You can see there's some glossing on the keys, so this has seen some pretty good use. I don't want to know what that is either. And apparently this person never believed in ever cleaning their keyboard. They just believed in stuffing their face and hitting the keys, apparently. But nonetheless, this is the only keyboard that I would pay $5.99 for, because it is a Razer Tarantula, and these keyboards are expensive. New Razers are like 70 bucks at Walmart. So you can see some minor scuffing right there, but nothing that bothers me. It's interesting, this keyboard has a audio connectors for the microphone and headphones right here. It's also got two gold-plated USB connectors right there. Of course, the audios are also gold-plated. One of these is for the keyboard, and the other one is for the USB hub on the back. Of course, you got your headphone and microphone jacks right there as well. So, yeah. Go pop this baby in the dishwasher and we'll see how clean it comes out. And after a trip through the dishwasher, the Razer keyboard is nice and clean now. And I like it for the most part. Everything works on it really good, feels good, and it's a pretty decent keyboard. Never had a Razer before, so it's not too bad. For $6, I can't really say it was a bad buy at all, considering how much these things still go for on eBay. It's a little worn, but it works, so that's all that really matters. I figured I'd take the opportunity right now to make one other tiny little clarification in the video. I'm not really a big fan of the triple monitor setup, the way AMD does it. It's kind of like Windows 8, you know, there's things that I like about it that make me use it, but there's some things that I really don't like the way it works. I understand why it works that way, but I don't think it's really all that wonderful. It's not optimized very well as far as I'm concerned, but you might say, well, why don't you just disable it when you're using it in Windows and re-enable it when you're doing gaming? Well, I thought about that. And the way it turned out is that when you disable the affinity in the catalyst, it actually loses the monitor configuration as well. So every time I re-enabled it, I had to go back in there and reconfigure the monitors and reposition them and redo the taskbar and things like that. So that turned into a pain in the ass too. So I can live with it. For what I get out of it, I can live with it. So I kind of like the way the game, when you play the game, it almost looks like you're looking through windows, which is kind of neat, like, you know, actual windows on a building or something like that. But it takes some getting used to. It also is a little bit more pleasurable sitting back a little bit further, so that you can actually take in all three monitors at the same time instead of, you know, having to pan your head around to look at them. I don't know how Jerry does that with those 46-inch monitors that he's got. I mean, those things are huge. And I realize he's got them on a dinner table, but oh man, you constantly be doing this. Oh. I don't know. I would maybe be willing to step up to 27-inch monitors. That's about as far as I would go with my desk anyway, and even 24s are pushing it. But I really would like to, my goal is to get the monitors situation straightened out. I like triple monitors enough that I'm willing to go ahead and actually pay for three of the same identical monitors. Hopefully my main monitor is an Asus monitor, so hopefully I can just get two other monitors that match that one. The cheap TV, I got that thing for Christmas. It was on sale at Walmart for 120 bucks, which I thought was a good deal until I went home and looked it up on Newegg and found out I could have gotten a regular computer monitor for the same price. Pissed me off, but that lag is because of the processing, and that TV you can't turn the processing off on. I tried. It doesn't have the option to do it. So unfortunately, it is what it is. It's not really all that bad in gaming, but you really notice the lag, like I showed in the video, when you actually move windows back and forth, and you can see how much of a delay there is, and you can see some of the screen tearing too when there's motion in a game. So that all kind of sucks. The colors are all a little bit off between each monitor, so But this was all just a test. I scrounged around the monitors that I had and added them to the Asus monitor that I already had on the system, just to see if I even liked the triple monitor thing. And I would like to continue to use it. So despite the slight dislikes that I have for it, I like the benefits of it. So anyway, it's been a long video and I'm tired and I'm going to go to bed. And yeah, so take care everyone. I hope you guys like this video, and we'll be back with some vintage computers coming up in the next few videos. So take care everyone. Peace out.